everyone and happy holidays. I'm Margaret, instructor at Code Wizards HQ, and today we're going to be making a fun HTML and CSS matching game together, and you're going to be able to personalize it with your own images and colors and all that good stuff. So this is going to be a fun one that you guys can play with your family over the Thanksgiving break to test your memory, but also a good one to test your coding skills. So all you need to make this happen is going to be a text editor and a browser. If you want to be able to share it with us, which I hope you will, you want to use a third party like REPL.it. All right, so I'm going to be using our Code Wizards HQ editor. If you're Code Wizards HQ student, you can use that X matching game folder, and that's going to have all the files for you. So let's get started. Okay. So I'm assuming that you have some HTML and CSS knowledge, and if not, that's okay, because copy and paste is going to go a long way here. And you're going to want to head over to our Code Wizards HQ blog to get all of these instructions and download our starter files. So you can also do our printable Thanksgiving coloring activity. You can print these out and take pictures of each of these cards if you want to use those inside of your game. If you go further down, you're gonna see what you need, and here is where you can download the base folder with all the files and the images that you're gonna need to make your Thanksgiving matching game. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a try. Once you've downloaded all of your base files, let's go ahead and we want to open up those files in your text editor. Here, I've got my folder called X Matching Game, and I'm going to click to see my files in there. And you guys are going to want to open up this game.html file. As you can see, there's some code written in here for you already. But when we run this code, when you put it into your browser, you let it interpret your code, you're not going to see anything yet. So on our front end, on our display, what we see, we don't see anything just yet. So we're gonna start with step number 1, which is adding a background to our game here. So let's go back to your code, and we're gonna add some CSS to our page. And your CSS is gonna go inside this style tag where it says add your CSS here. So we're gonna start by styling our body tag. All right, and because we're styling a tag directly, we just say body, and then open and close a set of curly braces. All right, your editor might do what mine did, which is add in that second curly brace for you. So in order to put our background image, we're gonna use this background image property, and we're gonna give it a URL. And in our files, we have this autumn.jpg file. You can use any image file here as your background image. So inside the URL, in our quotes, we're gonna use this autumn.jpg file, and don't forget your semicolon at the end. Now, our background here is gonna be really big, so we're gonna resize it and make it a little bit smaller by using this background size property, and we're gonna put that at 50%. And by default, your background image is going to repeat going across and down. All right, so this should repeat across our whole screen. And one more thing that I want to do is I want to align all of my text on this page to the center. So I'm going to use my text align property, and I'm going to put that in the center. All right, so save your code. And now when you run it in the browser, we should see this beautiful autumn background image populate. And again, you guys can make this whatever you want to match your theme. We've got our background image, so let's go back to our code and let's start working on our HTML. We need some HTML to actually create a board, and this board is gonna hold our title as well as our cards and our restart button. So in your code, go ahead and go inside of your body tag, and let's add a div, and we're gonna give this an ID of game wrapper. Let's open and close your div element. And inside of our opening tag, we're gonna give it an ID, and we're gonna call this game-wrapper. And we've already set up some styles for you in the style.css for this game wrapper. If we open that up, give yourself some space. Inside of our game wrapper, let's add our H1 header, our biggest header. So we're gonna open and close our H1. Here's where you can give a title to your name. I'm gonna call mine Thanksgiving Match Game, but you guys are welcome to call yours whatever you like. All right, so save that. Let's check it out in our browser. Let's see what this looks like. And ta-da, there is my title, but it doesn't look very nice. So let's go ahead and fix this in CSS. So step number 3, how are you guys doing so far? Hopefully you guys are keeping up okay. So we added our game wrapper and our header. Now let's do some styling to these. Let's beautify that game wrapper and that header. So we're gonna go back up into our style tag, and we're gonna start by styling our H1, our big header, our biggest header. All right, so H1, open and close your curly braces. Now we've already included this font family Sniglet from our Google Fonts here for you. And if you want more information on how to add your Google Fonts, you can hop over to my Google Fonts video. But for now, in our H1, we've already included this for you. So you're just gonna write font family, and this is gonna be called Sniglet. And it's gonna be in cursive. Now we're gonna add a color. I'm gonna make mine orange to match my theme here, but you can of course make your H1 any color that you want to match your theme. All right, so we've done some styling to that header. Let's save that and see how our header looks now. Cool, here is our header, okay. And that game wrapper, we're not quite seeing anything on it yet. So let's go back into our styles. Underneath our H1 styling here, let's style our game wrapper ID. And remember that when you're styling an ID, you want to put hashtag, and then we're going to say game dash wrapper and our curly braces. Okay, so here we're going to use our magic wand, our margin auto, that's going to put this game wrapper in the center of our page. We're going to say margin, our value is auto. And then we can also, if we want to move it away from the very top of our browser, we're going to use a margin top and give ourselves 40 pixels from the top. Now inside of this game wrapper, I also want a little bit of space away from my text and my cards and my button. So I'm going to use a padding of 20 pixels. And remember that our margin is going to be some space outside of our border, whereas our padding is going to be some space inside of our border. So margin outside, padding inside. Let's also give a size to our game wrapper, and I'm going to make this 760 pixels. We actually need that width in order for our margin auto to work. Let's also give a background color here. I'm just going to make it white. And now we've got this white section for our game wrapper. I'm gonna get fancy and I'm gonna fancy up these borders here. So in order to create this curved border, I'm gonna use border radius and do that at 20 pixels. So the more pixels, the more curved your border is gonna be. And I'm also gonna use this border property, and this one's a little bit special because it's gonna take 3 values. First is the width of our border, what type of border, and then also the color. So I've got a 5 pixels solid orange border here. So now I've got some styling on my header as well as my game wrapper. Let's go ahead and save our code. And let's run it to see what it looks like. So awesome, I've got this game wrapper here. I've got my H1 here nicely styled, and it of course matches this border that I have going on. So hopefully you guys are seeing that too. It looks great. So step 4, we want to start adding some cards to our game, right? The most important part. So we're going to add some cards, and a lot of this logic is already done for you in our logic.js file, but your job here is going to be to add the right div element to your game here. So underneath our H1, let's go ahead and create a new div. Make sure you open and close your div here. And then we want to give this one an ID of match grid. So we're going to say ID equals, and then in quotes, match dash grid. And if you save that, you should see your cards appear when you run your file now. So let's check this out. Nice, all right, so we've got all of our cards showing up now, and you're gonna see that our base file gives you 18 different cards. You can really easily customize this. If you go back to your code and check out that logic.js file, you're gonna see on line 26 a note that says it creates 18 card images, and here where it says I is less than 18, you can change that 18 up or down to show more or less cards, however many you like. All right, now let's go back to our game.html and keep going. Moving along. Now we've got our cards showing up here, but they're blank and we don't see anything, right? So what we want to do is we're actually going to put two things on top of each other, the front of the card and the back of the card. So starting with the front of the card, let's go over to our styles, and we're going to want to style the card and the card front. So let's first select our card class. And for this one, I want to put it in an absolute positioning because I'm putting it on top of another element. And then I'm going to give it a height of 100% and a width of 100%. So it's going to cover that whole face there. Now, one other thing that I want to add is this back face visibility. And it's going to hide what we've got going on in the back. And that's going to help us when we use our transformation to show that backside. So for now, it's hidden. All right, so that's going to be our card class. Now the front of our card, this card underscore front class, is going to control what kind of image or background you have on the front of the card. So let's do dot card front, open and close those curly braces. And for mine, I'm gonna use a linear gradient, meaning it's gonna start with one color and kind of change into a different color. So I can say background and then linear dash gradient here. Oh, and I'm missing an A, linear gradient, open and close your parentheses, semicolon at the end. Now inside my parentheses, I'm gonna put what two colors I wanna start and end with on my gradient. So for me, I'm gonna use orange and then yellow. I think that goes well with my theme here. Okay, so for your background, right, you could also use a background image or choose another color here. I'm just gonna use this linear gradient. So let's save that and then let's take a look, see how that front of our card looks now. Much better. All right, so we've got these beautiful orange yellow cards now. Hopefully you can see your linear gradient on the front of your cards too. All right, so step 6 now. Let's go ahead and start working on the back of the card. We're first gonna add the images to the back of the card. And this is gonna happen inside of our JavaScript. So we're gonna scroll down a little bit here and look for this script tag towards the end of your body element. And inside of here, you're gonna see this var images equals some brackets and then some quotes separated by commas. So this is some JavaScript to include a list or an array of images that we want to use inside of our game. So you can use any image files that you want here. Of course, we've included a bunch for you, or if you did the coloring activity, you took a picture of those, you can use those images here also. And you can add more images to this. I'm going to choose 3, and the way we want to write this is we're going to put the name of our image file in between the quotes. So starting with my first one, I'm going to use this pumpkin.png. And of course, we've got all of these images in the same folder. So make sure when you're adding your images, they're in the same folder as your game.html file. So pumpkin.png, how about boat.png? Make sure it's in between those quotes. And then I'm also gonna do this corn.png. Okay, so give that a save now. And if you wanted to add more, you could put a comma and then another file name in quotes. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to run this. And yay, so I'm seeing some images pop up. That's great, but they're really big. They're not quite what I want them to look like yet. So we'll handle that in a second. But you should see your images popping up, and if you refresh, you should see that it's also going to randomize these images every time. So they should actually be changing. That's pretty cool, right? Okay. And in our JavaScript file, we've got something that's helping us show whatever images you put in that list randomly inside of our match game. All right, nice job. Let's keep going. Okay, step number 7, we're almost there. So we've already added that image to the back of our card, right? But we need to do some styling so that we're not seeing that image and so that it fits on the back of the card. So let's go ahead and going back to our styles here, let's style first our card back class. All right, so for the back of the card, let's add a background color to start, whatever you like here. I'm gonna go with white, keep it simple. And then we're gonna use this really cool transform property. And what we're gonna do is basically rotate it 180 degrees so that it's flipped on its backside, all right? So that we're not seeing what's on the front side, which is gonna be that image that we're using. So these are the images that we're gonna use to match. We don't wanna see them yet. So let's say transform, and this is gonna be rotate, and Y is capitalized, and 180 degrees. So that's going to handle the back side of the card. But we also want to style that image specifically. So let's add one more style. We're going to select again that card back class, but we're going to specify the image element. So the image element inside that card back class. So let's give it a width and a height of 80 pixels. And if you want to push it down from the top a little bit, we can give it this margin top. So let's save that. And if we run it, let's check it out and see how this looks so far. All right, good. So the back is hiding. Again, we can't see it. We're not quite getting anything when we click it. We're gonna add that in a second. All right, so this looks really good though. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that moment that you've all been waiting for us to actually flip the card, right? So our JavaScript has added some code for us that when the card is flipped, it's gonna add a class called isFlipped. All right, so that's the class that we're gonna style. So let's add that .isFlipped, open and close those curly braces. And now we're gonna use that same transform property. We're gonna rotate it back around so that we can see it using that rotate Y again, and 180 degrees back to face us, semicolon at the end. Now give that a save. And if you run it, the moment of truth, let's click. And yes, we are seeing some flipping. Okay, not a match, but hopefully that's working for you guys. Should be able to click and flip your cards now. Your game should be working pretty well now. So for clicking, they should be flipping. We should be hopefully seeing some matches happen as well. But we can't restart our game, right? So let's go back to our code. And in order to restart our game, we're gonna wanna add a restart button inside of this game wrapper. And I'm gonna use an anchor tag here, but you can also use a button element. Either of those are gonna work. So I'm gonna go after my match grid div, and I'm gonna add an anchor tag, open and close my anchor tag. And this button can say whatever you want. Mine is gonna say restart. So what's important here, whether you're using the anchor tag or the button element, you can put an on-click attribute in that opening tag. And what this does is it tells this anchor tag or this button what to do when it's being clicked on. So on click, we're gonna run this function called start. So we're gonna say on click equals, and then inside our quotes, we're gonna put start with an open and close parentheses. And this is actually what we call a function. So when we click on this anchor tag, it's gonna run this start function and do something for us, which is basically reset the game. So save that, and let's try it out. Let's see if we can actually restart our game. I'm gonna run this. So here it is, my anchor tag. Doesn't look great, but let me try. I'm gonna click two things. That was a match. And if I click restart, it should reset everything, all right? And let's see if I got some different cards there now, right? So something different. Restarted my game, reorganized, re-randomized all of those cards for us. Okay, but restart button doesn't look too great. So let's work on that next. So last step here, step number 10, we're going to style that restart button. So we see it there, but it doesn't look very nice. So let's go back to our styles. And since mine was an anchor tag, I'm gonna select this A tag. And here you can be a little bit more creative. You can make this button look however you want. So I'm gonna choose the same font family that I did for my header up top, my sniglet, and that was in cursive. And I'm also gonna add a background color to my anchor tag here. And I'm gonna make that orange to match my theme. You can choose whatever you guys like here as well. Now, in order for my anchor tag, my button to display all the way across, I use this display block property. And because I don't want it to have the border right around my text, I'm gonna use some padding to give myself space inside the border. And then in order to move the whole button down away from the cards a little bit, I'm gonna use this margin of 10 pixels for some space around the outside. So you guys can play around with this and make your button look however you like. Now give that a save and let's try this out. Our final product here. Nice, so it's looking really good. I've got some space between my cards and my button and it's nicely styled. I can flip my cards. Oh, that one wasn't great. All right, my 2 corn here, and that's a match. Now I've got my button, I'm gonna restart it. So hopefully your game is working perfectly as well. If you guys have any questions or running into problems, feel free to drop me a comment and I'll be happy to answer your question and help you debug a little bit. That was a lot of fun, guys. I'm really proud of you for completing this tutorial and building your own Thanksgiving match game. So when you're ready, go ahead and share your game with me in the comments or in our Facebook page, which is going to be linked in the description. If you're not really sure how to take your code from your editor into a shareable link, I'm going to be making a bite-sized video on that very soon, so stay tuned. And that's it for now, guys. I hope you have a really wonderful Thanksgiving. From our family to yours, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you soon.